Ancient am I, ancient and worthy of your fealty. Swear allegiance to me, and I will tell you everything about the secret abyss.
The abyss is an enticing enigma within the lore of Dungeons & Dragons. Its depths unknowable, its animus inscrutable. A festering malignancy upon the fiber of existence. The abyss is nihility made real. The inescapable degradation of entropy. The doom of total annihilation. For though it creates and spawns the infinite hordes of demons that it disperses across the cosmos, these entities are not capable of love or kindness. They do not create or add to the universe. They are engines of destruction, manifestations of self-serving hate and rancor. Indeed, they rail against order and creation itself. They look upon the cosmos from the outer dark as they scream in terrible rage and gnash their teeth. Thus, the creation of demonkind is itself an act of destruction. And so, it is made plain to every god and humanoid that the abyss has but one ultimate aim: the eradication of all existence. And yet, we find ourselves inexplicably drawn to it. We wish to plumb the enigmatic darkness in search of understanding we likely can never hope to find. Perhaps it is how the abyss reflects the inner darkness of our own souls, the tiny, unexplainable urge we all have within us that wishes to self-destruct. The part of us that calls out for a sacrifice, a self-indulgence, an intrusive thought, the source of our own terrible vices. That feeling of great emptiness many of us feel in the late hours of the night, as we examine the insignificance of our own existence, and the terror that the universe itself has no meaning. Or maybe that's just me. Perhaps in understanding the abyss, we can come to better understand ourselves. Or perhaps Dungeons & Dragons is merely a tabletop role-playing game, and having entities of pure evil we can swing a sword at is a convenient and fun way to escape the stresses and demands of everyday life. Either way, the call of the abyss has driven many a D&D character mad as they attempt to understand the plane of chaos and evil incarnate. And though no consensus as to its origins has ever been reached, there are two major theories that have permeated the editions of Dungeons & Dragons. These I will present thusly. I am William Stark.
I am Omar Timsaw.
And this is D&D Legends and Lore. In the beginning, and even before, chaos was all that existed. Out of it came demons, the living manifestations of chaos. In this original incarnation, what would come to be called the abyss was, if anything, more horrifying than its current incarnation. In this harsh, primeval state of utter chaos, rampant evil, and seeming infinity, only the oerths, the original demons, hideous and alien beings that embodied pure chaos, possessed the cunning and natural defenses needed to survive. Life fecund and foul infested its oceans, and unimaginable horror rose from the primal chaos in times long forgotten. The abominable forms of the oerths are utterly alien and bear no resemblance to modern mortal life, unlike the now dominant Tanari demons who, though definitely twisted and horrifying to behold, tend to resemble humanoids or animals in their forms. It is said that simply looking upon the strange shapes of the oerths can drive a mortal insane, and even the cosmos itself is horrified by their presence. Indeed, it would seem that this state of raw chaos was intolerable to the universe. So a force arose to bring balance to it: the power of law. From this principle of abstract order, a number of beings coalesced with the sole purpose of fashioning chaos into order: the gods. This was the age before ages, eons before the rise of mortals, before time itself had come to be invented and understood. It was then that the oerths ruled the abyss uncontested, In those days when the multiverse was young and the deeper layers of the abyss still shuddered with the aftershocks of creation, the oerths, clustered upon the uppermost layer, the plane of infinite portals, ruled the barren landscape from mighty fortresses of bizarre architectural design, situated on the rims of great chasms leading to the lower layers. They plumbed those layers carefully, seldom staying long before returning to their citadels to make war with each other or engage in profane surgeries and rites meant to create life in their blasphemous image. For a time, in this age before ages, still long before the advent of mortal life, the abyss knew some form of what could relatively and tentatively be called peace. The oerths were content, in a sense, to war among themselves, fighting to seize the domains and secrets of their neighbors while protecting their own. And the rest of reality, for the most part, was content to leave them to their internal squabbles. But this was not to last. The croaking and cackling lords of the abyss, never truly satisfied, required a constant supply of various servitor races to serve in their forces and at their feasts. Foul surgeries and rites were performed to make life forms in the oerth image. Thus, the Sybrics breeding pits were formed. Vast places writhing with new innovations and horror. After generations of experiments, the Sybrics produced the first entities that have become synonymous with the word demon in the modern age, the Tanari. And as this was occurring, some of the oerths sought to explore deeper into their home of chaos and evil. They began to burrow into the foundation of their plane, drilling deep through the plane of infinite portals using an elaborate magical working. This ended in cataclysmic results that ended with the deaths of a dozen oerth lords as the entire plane began to quake and crumble, sinking fortress citadels and crushing countless demons. But when the dust had settled, what remained was a great discovery. A great chasm of infinite depth and countless portals to hitherto unknown layers. The infinite nature of the grand abyss had been realized, and how it longed to be populated by the oerths and their teeming hordes of servitor demons. It was during this time that one oerth came to rise in power above the rest, the first and mightiest among them, and the first to hold the title of Prince of Demons, Oerths, the Primal Chaos. Oerths was a nightmarish entity, seemingly a cross between a backward scorpion and a monstrous millipede, with clusters of chitinous arachnoid limbs ending in deadly talons, erratically clamoring about his distended form. The places where his three-faced head and three massive tails should be were reversed, although both ends were equipped with wicked stingers. His tail edges were jagged and dripped a black venom, while his hideous visage, supported by a thick neck stalk, had a hollow, corkscrew-shaped spike at the end of his red tongue. His three faces gave him three sets of malicious crimson eyes and a vertical maw that housed this tongue. As a being of chaos incarnate, Oerths' very presence eroded sanity and poisoned the mind of those not powerful enough to bear it. His aberrant form inflicted mind-rending nightmares on those that looked upon it. Even hearing the deafening drone caused by the movements of his chitinous armor could cause temporary confusion from the sheer, chaotic cacophony of the shrieking screams of it. Rather than poison, his tongue contained raw chaos matter, which he could implant into the flesh of other beings. The entropic power slowly consumed the unfortunate target's body and soul, until they were utterly destroyed with only the strongest of restorative magic bringing back the lost soul without the degradation continuing. He also possessed telekinetic powers and the ability to create symbols of insanity. It was thus all the other oerth lords bowed to Oerths as he oversaw the spreading of demon kind across the infinite abyss. And none dared move against him, save for one. The Queen of Chaos was an oerth who rose to power in the age before ages. While the others of her kind plotted and warred amongst themselves, she alone looked past the abyss and discovered life in the other planes of existence. It was thus that the brazen Queen of Chaos came to the conclusion that it was her destiny to bring ruin to all such realms, and her first course of action to achieve this goal was to murder the Prince of Demons, Oerths. But how to slay the Prince of Demons? He far outstripped all other Oerth lords, including the Queen of Chaos herself, and none of them would stand with her against him. It was then the Queen of Chaos's gaze came to rest upon the servitor demons who had so long chafed under the tyranny of Oerth rule, the Tanari. Perhaps she could use them. She would need an army to launch her war against the cosmos, and what better way to secure a loyal force of uncounted measure than to bring the entire species of the Tanari under her rule. So, she sought out the mightiest and most vile of all Tanari, Miska, the wolf spider. This enormous spider with 3 heads, a humanoid head atop a central 4-armed humanoid torso with 2 wolf-like heads on either side. The hair on his humanoid head was long and black, and his spider-like body was blue-black with bands of gray, silver, and blue. His arms, however, were a bleached white color. Miska's power was such that even the Oerth lords feared him. Together, the Queen of Chaos and Miska the wolf spider plotted the demise of Oerths and of bringing the entirety of demonkind under their rule. It was the sheer audacity of the move that ensured their success, since such action against the Prince of Demons was entirely unexpected. Miska brought his full force to bear, along with teeming hordes of fellow Tanari, in a massive battle against Oerths. And when the prince was weakened, the Queen of Chaos killed him before he could retaliate, with only a small portion of himself slinking off deep into the abyss. Afterwards, Miska, the Queen's most loyal servitor and consort, was granted the power and title of Prince of Demons, ensuring the obedience of the entire Tanari race. Meanwhile, many of the remaining Oerth lords were in shock, and few were willing to risk the wrath of a being powerful enough to kill Oerths. Most of her rivals were cowed under her banner, while those that resisted were murdered or imprisoned. The exception to this being the Oerth Lord Dagon, whose knowledge and power the Queen of Chaos so feared that she allowed him to remain undisturbed. Her forces now in tow, the Queen of Chaos began a war against the multiverse itself. The forces of chaos swept across the multiverse. The savagery of Miska's demonic hordes brought huge gains in territories and converts, particularly in the material plane. World after world fell under the Queen's dominion, and with each victory, that which was once immutable became fluid. Laws of nature became half-forgotten memories from a saner time. Chaos ascended, and the abyss ascended with it. Eons passed, and the forces of the Queen of Chaos won nearly every battle they fought, but the conflict finally shuddered to a stalemate on the material plane of Oerth, a place rich in magic and untapped possibilities. Opposing them were the forces of Law, led by the Wind Dukes of Akka, also known as the Vati. These scions of an ancient empire that spanned worlds was the last real chance the multiverse had at resisting the conquering armies of the Queen of Chaos. The Wind Dukes, in a desperate gambit, suffused all of their power into a single artifact, a rod of pure law. It was on the field of Pesh, in the shadow of a great volcano called White Plume Mountain, that the Wind Dukes of Akka impaled Miska the wolf spider with the rod of law. And as the absolute law of the rod mixed with the demon's chaotic blood, a massive planar rift opened, shattering the rod into 7 pieces. The Wind Duke's champion and Miska's body vanished into the rift, while the 7 parts of the rod were scattered across the multiverse. Miska became trapped in an extra-dimensional prison on Pandemonium, robbing the Queen of Chaos of her most powerful ally and the guarantee of Tanari cooperation. The legend of the defeat and the potent artifact that engendered it spread quickly throughout the Great Wheel, forever changing the nature of the conflict. Back on the plane of infinite portals, the Oerth alliance fractured, and the Queen of Chaos herself retreated to the lower depths of the abyss, seeking refuge in a reeking raz called the Steaming Fen. Sensing weakness, the Queen's enemies struck out. From the heights of Arborea, Fairy Queen Morwell of the Eladrin Court of Stars ordered her Night Legions to launch a devastating raid upon the Plane of Infinite Portals. The Oerth Lords struggled to maintain their fortresses against these attacks, but they and their demonic thralls died in their thousands, and not just to the forces of good and law. For at this moment, the treacherous Tanari exploded in open revolt, overthrowing their masters even as the sky swarmed with flying celestials and gleaming golden armor. The celestials themselves cared little for the differences between Oberth and Tanari, and slew all of them with impunity. Demons of all varieties fled down the numerous pits and into the bowels of the abyss and an infinity of hostile climes. Some vanished forever, swallowed by eldritch voids or slain by fellow refugees. Others thrived, managing to bend whole layers of the plane to their wills. The Tanari especially excelled in coaxing a sort of symbiotic relationship with the abyss, and while once Miska the wolf spider had been the sole prince of demons, now scores of evolved Tanari squabbled for the title. But when all was said and done, it was the first of their kind birthed in the Sibriux pits who came to claim the title. His name was Demogorgon, and his rule as Prince of Demons continues to this day. Now the crumbling, rusting iron fortresses of the eldest demons crowd the Plane of Infinite Portals, crumbling testaments to the near-forgotten age. The Oerths are a defeated force, a dying race shuddering toward extinction. Those who maintain some shred of influence do so by the tacit approval of the Tanari, or because they claim extremely remote or inhospitable layers. Some few Oerths hold out for a return of the Queen of Chaos, but she has not emerged from the Steaming Fen since retiring there on the eve of the upheaval. This is but one story detailing the ancient history of the Abyss, but there is another. As with many of these tales from D&D's past, it in many ways directly contradicts the other, though it also mirrors the previous story. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. And as always is the case, the real truth is whatever you choose it to be around your own table. The oldest myths and legends tell of a race of vile entities that once presided over the remains of a dying universe. These beings of evil incarnate were known as the oerths, and they had ruled since time immemorial. As their hunger drained their realm of all life and power, though, they realized that their days were numbered. Their universe was dying, the end result of a cosmos consumed by the inescapable degradation of entropy. So it was that in the last age of their race, the Oerths breached the barrier between their realm and another, pushing through a shard of uttermost evil through the fissure between realities. With the power of the shard, they hoped to corrupt the most powerful beings of this new realm. After bending and eventually enslaving these creatures to their will, the Oerths would exert their control over a new realm, reshaping it in their own vile image. Eons passed as the Oerths slowly died in their universe bereft of light and life. When only a handful of their kind remained, the plan they had enacted so long ago finally came to fruition. A deity hungry for power found and seized the Shard of Evil. This god, named Tharizdun, upon his seizing of the shard, found his mind and spirit open to the Oerths trapped in their dying darkness. The link to those foul beings corrupted him in an instant, driving the deity to madness. But the Oerths' plan to seize the celestial realms controlled by Tharizdun and his kind was met with resistance, and a twist they had not anticipated. The Oerths demanded that the deity plant the seed of evil within the astral sea, promising him total dominion of that realm in exchange for his fealty. Even within his madness, however, Tharizdun recognized that his fellow gods would turn upon him before he could fully seize the power of the Oerths. Instead, the mad god traveled to the farthest reaches of the cosmos, planting the seed of evil in a primordial expanse of the churning elemental chaos, the realm of the fallen primordials. Here, he hoped to seize the realm as his own. The planting of the seed of evil in the elemental chaos unleashed power like that realm had never seen before. The nascent evil of the oerths realm flared one last time as black flame, exploding through a yawning vortex that formed where the seed was cast down. Forced to act even though their plans had gone astray, the oerths allowed themselves to be drawn through the vortex as their own realm was consumed and finally destroyed. The oerths had seemingly won their prize, a realm in which their evil could be spawned anew. But as the tear in the fabric of reality closed, Tharizdun faced off against his would-be masters. Beholding the oerths in their horrific grandeur, Tharizdun was shielded from their wrath by the link they had forged with him through the Shard of Evil. At the same time, the evil and madness of the Shard had blessed Tharizdun with great power of his own. The vortex that formed around the Shard of Evil was the Abyss, growing within the elemental chaos, even as Tharizdun and the oerths fought to control it. In a battle that raged for eons, Tharizdun tore through the stuff of the nascent Abyss, following the Shard of Evil and calling forth minions from its burgeoning substance. The first demons howled in fury at their creator's command, throwing themselves at the oerths in wave after suicidal wave. The Shard of Evil had granted the mad god far more power than the oerths could ever have predicted. Instead of a puppet, they faced a being of unmatched strength and absolute evil. Only by working together did the last 12 oerths stave off destruction and, over the course of endless battles, force Tharizdun into a stalemate. As both sides withdrew to plot the other's destruction, the growth of the Abyss settled and slowed, and beings outside the newly created realm took notice of it for the first time. Drawn by whispers promising power and dominion over the unfolding realms of creation, the first primordials entered the Abyss. The shattered realm they observed within the vortex was thoroughly corrupted, but these creatures were unconcerned with morality as they pressed on, beckoned by the whispering of the Abyss's evil heart. As they explored farther into the desolation, they came upon a great blood-red ocean, and they knew they had reached that heart at last. Floating there in the shallows of the nascent blood sea, the Shard of Evil called out for one strong enough to step forward and claim it. The first to set forth was a petulant primordial of unbridled fury named Demogorgon. As Demogorgon waded into the turbulent surf, however, another being rose up from the darkened depths beneath the sea. The interloper Dagon challenged Demogorgon for the right to claim the shard, and the mighty primordials clashed in a battle that turned the sea to a bloody storm. But as they fought, a third being crawled up from a hitherto unseen pit to claim the shard as his own. Oerths, a loathsome oerth of putrescence and filth, claimed the Shard of Evil, and thus became the first Prince of Demons. Despite the unparalleled power he gained as Prince of Demons, Oerths was not the full master of that power. As it had with Tharizdun, the shard compelled its wielder to plant it in the astral sea. Oerths, suffering under the shard's powerful weight, struggled to carry it forth from the abyss and complete the purpose for which his kind had created it. However, not all demons wanted to see the shard lay waste to the astral realms. The primordials Demogorgon, Orcus, and Baphomet, already in the throes of demonic transformation, feared rightly that Oerths' actions would grant him control over all the cosmos. They attacked the Prince of Demons before he could reach the astral sea, flinging Oerths and the shard down again into the vortex beneath which the abyss had formed. Where Oerths struck, the abyss was sundered, forming a deep fissure into which the sea drained away in a boiling storm. As they followed the newly created blood rift into the lightless depths, Demogorgon, Orcus, and Baphomet were finally transformed into demon lords true. Yet as they did so, they felt their power begin to wane. The whispers of the abyss suddenly silenced the deeper they went in pursuit of the shard. Alarmed, the three quickly retreated even as the powerful primordial Garash slipped past them hoping to claim their prize. He was never seen again, and since that dark day, the Demon Lords have feared to seek the Shard of Evil within the Blood Rift's endless depths. In time, more pits began to appear across the arid surface of the abyss. Exploration of these chasms whisked creatures through extra-dimensional conduits to uncharted reaches of that realm. The malevolent maelstrom that had formed the abyss was growing as the seed of evil burrowed deeper and deeper into the primal foundations of the elemental chaos. Within these new layers, the Demon Lords established their mighty domains, bending the very fabric of the abyss to their indomitable will. The intrusion of the primordials into the abyss pushed Tharizdun to act. He attempted to force Demogorgon, oerths, and their ilk into slavery, but their combined power proved too great for him. Rather than risk defeat in single combat, Tharizdun strove to marshal the power of the elemental chaos and its denizens in his bid for universal domination. The primordials, already angered with the gods meddling in the affairs of the world, were easily swayed by Tharizdun's call to arms. They believed that if the mad god could reclaim the Shard of Evil now buried in the heart of the abyss, it would ensure their triumph over the gods of the astral sea. Calling himself the Elder Elemental Eye, Tharizdun attracted powerful followers, only a few of which knew him as the god he was. The deceit he fomented rallied other elemental creatures to his banner, and the cult of elemental evil grew. Chief among Tharizdun's lieutenants was a powerful primordial named Miska the Wolf Spider. It was Miska who was charged with assaulting the abyss to find the Shard of Evil. But it was by this time that the attention of the gods had been drawn to the festering malignancy that was still the nascent abyss, and the primordials that entered it. Tharizdun's plans were discovered, and his immortal kin attacked. Though a powerful foe, Tharizdun was overcome by the combined might of the gods. Locking him away in a remote abyssal lair, they called him the Chain God, and struck his name from history. Tharizdun's armies were scattered, but they were not yet defeated. Marshaled by Miska and the princes of elemental evil, the host fought on. Above the cosmic maelstrom of the abyss hangs a cruel stationary sun. Once every millennium, an immense orbiting mote of elemental earth eclipses this star, blanketing the plane of 1,000 portals in total darkness. It was during the first of these rare periods of occluded twilight that the most powerful oerths, called the Queen of Chaos by others of her kind, saw a chance to seize the power over which the Demon Lords and Tharizdun's followers fought. As the eclipse commenced, a mass battle was raging on the plane beneath. The armies of Oerths were defending the layer's portals against Miska the Wolf Spider and his forces. Miska and his armies cornered the weakened Prince of Demons in the end, and were about to gain access to a portal that Miska believed would lead them to the Shard of Evil. At that point, the Queen of Chaos struck. On the bleak plain, the powerful Oerth slew Oerths, dethroning the Prince of Demons, even as she offered his reign to the Wolf Spider. Having long feared that Tharizdun might never be freed, Miska, still a primordial, was beginning to succumb to the call of the abyss even before the Oerth's offer. He thus gave his allegiance to the Queen of Chaos in exchange for her aid in destroying the gods of the astral sea. With the might of the abyss and the armies of the elemental chaos marshaled behind her, the Queen of Chaos was suddenly vaulted into a position of near absolute power, looking past the abyss with the dream of controlling all creation. The alliance between the Queen of Chaos and Miska the Wolf Spider began a climactic epoch of war. With the combined forces of chaos battering its deities, the astral sea seemed lost. However, as the gods' bastions fell, an exarch of Moradin, the god of dwarves, and the 7 angels of Bahamut, god of justice, known as the Windukes of Akka, worked in secret with the soul forge of Moradin to craft the Rod of Law. With this powerful weapon, the gods hoped to defeat the hosts of chaos once and for all. The Rod of Law turned the tide of war in the astral sea. In the end, it broke the will of the invaders when it was used to strike down Miska the wolf spider, then banished the Prince of Demons to an unknown plane. The shattered Rod of Law became the artifact known as the Rod of Seven Parts, as Miska's armies retreated to the elemental chaos. Her power diminished and her will broken. The Queen of Chaos dissipated back into the abyss. Though her true fate remains unknown, it is said that she will not return until the Plane of 1,000 Portals is blighted by an eclipse once more. With the forces of the Queen of Chaos in retreat, and the demons that served her scattered or dying, Demogorgon chose to act. Though content to stand behind their queen while she held power, the oerths retreated into hiding when she fell. Having had the foresight to keep their true identities and nature a secret, the oerths could not be targeted by the demon lords, who saw their power as a threat. But while in hiding, they were forced to watch in rage as Demogorgon asserted his claim as Prince of Demons. After crushing his rivals and gathering their followers into a devastating force, Demogorgon repelled the forces of the Astral Sea from their assault on the abyss. But while the Queen of Chaos had been attempting overt conquest, others among the oerths pursued more subtle plots. In the aftermath of Miska's failure and the Oerth Queen's fall, Pazuzu, Dark Angel of the Four Winds, and one of the 12 Oerth Lords, slipped out of the abyss in secret to stake his own claim on power. Making his way by secret portals to Tharizdun's prison, the Oerth presented himself to one of the deific guards there, an angelic paragon of chastity and virtue named Asmodeus. The angel listened as Pazuzu plied him with flattery and lamented that the gods had chosen to repay Asmodeus' loyalty with an eternity of service at a thankless task. A seed of vanity and false pride began to grow within Asmodeus, fanned to a spark by arrogance by Pazuzu's words. Soon, believing he was more righteous than the deity to whom he had sworn allegiance, Asmodeus began to hear the whispers of the Shard of Evil at the abyss's heart. Abandoning his duty to guard the chained god, he sought out and found the shard in the abyss's incalculable depths. Asmodeus stole away a sliver of the shard, forging it into a ruby-tipped rod of incredible power. Armed with this scepter of absolute evil, Asmodeus led an invasion of the Astral Sea in which his original divine master was slain. The victory was short-lived, however, and Asmodeus and his infernal army were imprisoned in the dominion of his former master. But the fallen angel's hunger for power was all-consuming. Millennia later, through guile and ruthless plays of power, Asmodeus had clawed and climbed his way to become a god in his own right. But he still hungered to return to the heart of the abyss and steal an even more powerful fragment of the shard. He and his followers, the newly named devils, looked hungrily into the depths of the abyss. Over the next age, demons and devils destroyed each other on an uncounted number of battlefields. Even as Asmodeus sought the power of the Shard of Evil, the demon lord sought to return his stolen fragment to its rightful resting place. Devils were soon pouring into the abyss at an alarming rate, constructing iron fortresses and holding large stretches of the strategically significant Plane of 1,000 Portals. The forces of the demon lords in return drove the devils back, waging battle on the hellish plains of Avernus. For untold millennia, the blood war raged with no end in sight. Then, unexpectedly, recent centuries have seen the endless battle devolve to a state of sullen truce. On the heels of civil war in the Nine Hells, and the constant struggles for power among the demon lords, the losses of the blood war became too high a toll. And for now at least, all is quiet on both fronts. But how long will it be before the Shard of Evil whispers to another demon lord, archdevil, god, or some other power? How long before the burning desire for power again consumes the cosmos in all-out war? For the wise know that it is only a matter of time. This has been D&D Legends and Lore. If you enjoy the lore we present on this channel, then you may be interested in the book that I've written for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, Starseeker's Guide to Drakenstar. It is a book designed to bring the sci-fi and science fantasy genres to your game of D&D and is set in a galaxy-spanning setting known as Drakenstar. The link is in the description. Also, if you enjoy this show, please consider leaving us an Apple Podcast review or Spotify rating. It really helps us out. Lastly, consider supporting us on Patreon or through YouTube memberships if you're interested in early ad-free episodes, homebrew D&D content, and actual live play podcasts. And with that, I will say thank you for listening and happy adventuring.